Okay, it's 1 o'clock on the dot. Let's go ahead and get started. Pentuashte Madakiape. Good day, relatives. Thank you for joining our webinar today to learn about a new exciting native agricultural youth opportunity that Nakoda-Aaniiih Credit Agency is providing for their youth. Native Americans are not only the first peoples of the America, or Turtle Island as we like to call it, but also its first farmers. Today you will learn more about how Nakoda-Aaniiih's team is leading the charge in this space. Again, thank you all for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. A few housekeeping tips. For this webinar, you will be automatically muted, which will help eliminate any background noise and elevator or hold music for you multitaskers out there. If you have any questions or comments, please type those into the chat box or raise your virtual hand if you'd like to be unmuted. Of course, you could raise your physical hand, but I may not be able to see you on this end. If you could just send a smoke signal over, we'll recognize that. Just kidding, just raise your virtual hand. We realize this may be your 12th groundbreaking webinar of the week, so no doubt you've mastered being present and possibly even engaged. Thanks again for joining us today. Okay guys, practice time. If you see your virtual hand on your little toolbar, go ahead and raise it and lower it. Or if you prefer, please go ahead. Oh, we've got many hands raising. Okay, or if you prefer to plug into your chat box and just say hi. Just quickly say hi. I just want to make sure you guys are okay with that toolbox there. Most of you have been on many Zoom calls, many Zoom webinars, Zoom meetings, Zoom graduations, heck, maybe even a Zoom wedding or two. So I know you've got that toolbar pretty well set. All right, everyone, we see you out here. Thanks so much again for joining us. All right, happy Wednesday, webinar relatives. Who are we representing out there? If you all could just quickly type into your chat box who you are and which organization you're representing, we would greatly appreciate that. We have folks registered from all across the country, all across ag country, I guess you could say. And so if you just feel like typing in there, who's all on? Hi, Russ. Good to see you on again. Russ Siegel over at Sequoia Fund was one of our featured presenters just a couple weeks ago. All right, fantastic. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks again for joining us on this webinar today. All right, okay. Of course, we've got Brandon coming in from United Homa Nation. Welcome, Brandon. So glad you're here with us. Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. So, yep, we've got those tools set. So, good to know there. Okay, warm-up question. One word that describes how you're feeling right now, guys. Type into that chat box. One word that you're feeling right now in this moment. One word. I know with everything going on in this country, things are a little bit, you know, hard. Glad to be here. All right, Russ. And of course, Ray, he's saying, hey, Ray. So just a little, Ray King, he's also known as King Ray to us. So just had to share that little fun story and how that, we won't go into how that came about, but yeah. Okay, anxious, feeling energized, curious, energized, ready to go. Awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty excited too about what we're doing here today. So I'm just glad you all can get on, and just please know too, we are recording this webinar. So if this is something that this information you'd like to have back or show it with anybody in the office, we'll definitely record it because you are a part of the webinar. We will send out the slide deck to you as well, and the other resource that we have attached to this too. So thank you so much for that. All right. Well, my name is Tawny Wilson, and I work at First Nations Oweesta as a programs officer. I've been with Oweesta, gosh, almost about a year and a half, pushing up to 2 years, which I always like to say with Oweesta and the learning curve, the strength of our people, the learning is like dog years. It may have almost been 2, but it feels like about 10 now. I'm so grateful to be a part of this industry. And today our featured presenter is going to be Mr. Raymond King, or King Ray, I like to call him. We'll be turning it over to him in just a minute, but let me give you a little bit of Ray's background. Ray is a former Marine who is the current executive director of Nakoda-Aaniiih Credit Agency, located in Harlem, Montana. He is responsible for the administration, fiscal management, and operational direction of this emerging CDFI loan fund. Ray has worked for the Fort Belknap tribal government in grants and contracts management. And back in the day, Ray also worked as a database developer at King Ranch, where he designed a livestock database, managed livestock and company operations, as well as supervising inventory for the livestock, land, forage, and equipment. Ray has a degree in business administration and in his spare time enjoys long walks along the creek. No doubt Ray would rather enjoy long walks along the beach, but being that he's in Montana, I think long walks along the creek will have to do, huh, Ray?
Yeah, that'll do.
A little bit about Oweesta. I know most of you know about our organization and we thank you for that, but just for a few folks that may not know about Oweesta, we have been in existence for, gosh, about 25 years now? 1986 is when we were founded, a little over. From 1986 to currently, we became a provider of technical and training assistance, or training and technical assistance, I should say. In 2005, we launched our lending program here at Oweesta. And from 2005 all the way to middle of 2017, we have dispersed $23 million in total loans made to Native CDFIs, which is really exciting. In 2018, we closed a record $10.8 million in new loans. So we are over $30 million in capital out into Indian country, creating economic development and really revitalizing our communities. So our mission at Oweesta, as of right now, we are one of the few existing Native CDFI intermediaries out there in our country. We offer financial products and development services exclusively to Native CDFIs and Native communities. Specifically, we provide training, technical assistance, investments, research, policy advocacy work, specifically to help Native communities develop an integrated range of asset building products and services, including financial education and financial products. Asset building tools stimulate reservation economies by providing tribal members the opportunity to acquire financial management skills and to build and accumulate assets through small business creation, home ownership, education, and much more. Currently, we have 73 certified Native CDFIs, and 49 of those 73 are Native CDFI network members. And our industry is continuing to grow. So today on our webinar, we are going to cover a few things with Mr. Ray here. We'll talk about the importance of Native Ag youth opportunities. We'll discuss Nakoda-Aaniiih Credit Agency's youth program. We'll talk about their application process, the underwriting evaluation process that they go through, and the 9 ways to engage youth in agriculture. So the importance and value of Native Ag youth opportunities. Across Indian country, there's a national movement to reclaim and increase access to our traditional food systems to ensure tribal communities have access to healthy and affordable foods. So it's important that our Native youth get involved in the ag industry because they are the future of our food systems. Tribes are investing deeply in food and ag production, both for economic development and for the health and well-being of our people and our communities. So when we talk about building local food systems, you know, when it comes to tribal communities, a lot of our communities are in very rural areas. When the government put us on these reservations or tribal communities, or we fought for our land, and like in Oklahoma, they don't actually have that reservation land base. When it comes to creating and developing and sustaining food sovereignty, that means we reclaim our local food systems, which we know really builds economic development. Not only is it important for us to survive and thrive in our tribal nations, but it's important for the future for all of us. It's critical that our young people understand the role of tribal governance and food sovereignty in regaining our futures around food. Food sovereignty, what is the definition of that? We get asked that a lot. Food sovereignty is the ability to create a self-sufficient food system within our community to feed our people. And it's at the heart of the opportunities and challenges facing many tribal nations. Now, another thing we know is that the importance of value of native ag youth is it develops our future leaders. Ag production is very important for our tribal nations, but the entire world as well. Ag is our country's single largest employer, with over 23 million jobs involved in some facet of American agriculture. There are over 2 million farms and ranches across the United States, making up over 900 million acres. It is clear that agriculture is a very integral part of our nation and makes up much of our economy. However, what does the future hold in store for us? With a world population that is growing exponentially, it is estimated that we will need to produce 70% more food to keep up with our growing demand. Feeding the world will definitely be a daunting task, with the world population projected to swell over 9 billion people in the next 30 years. Which brings us the question, what is the right direction for ag, and how do we engage our youth in ag to make sure that we have sustainable food systems in our local communities? Our youth are so important because they are our future. They are the ones who will grow up to work in the ag industry and advocate for all of its noble causes. They will become farmers, ranchers, business leaders, and lawmakers. Organizations such as Future Farmers of America and 4-H are vital to the future of our ag industry, and it all begins now. The best thing that we can offer to our youth is support from producers, business leaders, legislators, teachers, and nonprofits like Nakoda-Aaniiih that is doing the work to make sure that they're supporting our youth in ag. With lots of support and encouragement, we believe that America's youth will grow up to lead ag in the right direction, which will allow it to prosper for many years to come. Lastly, we talk about the important factor here is the purpose generation provides entrepreneurial opportunities. Well, what is that? So this generation has been called the purpose generation. We actually call it, in Lakota culture, we believe in the 7th generation, which has come to save us from ourselves. So whether you call it the 7th generation, the purpose generation, we find is the most entrepreneurial minded generation in our entire history. And these young people want to engage their passions and talents through meaningful economic opportunities. We see this happening time and time again. To tap into this transformative talent, we don't have to convince youth to work in ag. We need to help them see how ag is the perfect context to apply their skills and passions to advance not only global food security, but local food security for our own communities. By doing that, today's youth will empower a more sustainable world by advancing global economic, social, political, and food security. And that's why we know that it's very important and valuable to have native ag youth opportunities. So enough of me talking. We are going to turn it on over to Ray. Again, he's Executive Director of Nakoda-Aaniiih Credit Agency, and he is going to start talking about the 4-H Youth Loan Program that he's created out there in Montana. Take it away, Ray.
Thank you, Tani. Yeah, like Tani was saying, my name is Ray King, Nakoda-Aaniiih Credit Agency. We're an emerging CDFI, emerging native CDFI. We originally got funding through Native American Ag Fund, and that's the funds that we use to employ our youth loan program. Our sponsoring entity was awarded a technical assistance grant from the CDFI fund in 2017. And it took us a little bit to get started. I originally came on board as a board member in 2018, end of 2018. And then I was hired as the loan officer in March, the following March of last year, 2019. So since then, we were incorporated as an S corporation, nonprofit, obviously. And, we spent that next 6 months just gearing up, preparing for loans. And our first loans that we made was in December of 2019. So not that long ago at all. And I guess coincidentally that those first loans were our youth ag loans. Um, and it's, I'll get into how we develop that. But moving forward from this point, we're getting ready to apply for a certification in August of 2020. So that's just in a few months. So we're really excited about that. And the whole push for those first loans with our youth program was to satisfy some of the criteria from the CDFI fund. But we were able to do that. And since then, we've been processing loans pretty regularly. The way our youth loans came out, we were preparing to do agriculture loans, but we weren't getting a lot of hits out there. So some of our board members are involved with the 4-H, our local 4-H club, and they recommended that we target the youth. And it fell right into place because it follows our strategy and our mission, especially for youth. And what an opportunity to be able to do that at that moment. So we were able to loan out eight loans to those youth for steers for their 4-H fair, which is coming up. So since the COVID crisis, they're leaning towards online auction. So that'll be interesting and a new learning experience too for the kids. And we can go to the next slide. Okay. So our application process, I guess we could bring that up. Tawny, is that okay?
Yes, absolutely, Ray. Let me pull that up.
I'll just go through our application process. Some of the questions that we ask and why. But note that, as we go through this application, when we go to underwrite it, we just underwrite it the same way we do any other loan. But this one's a little bit different. It's because we need support from local 4-H and parent signatures. So yeah, as we move through the application, they obviously ask for a specific amount of the loan for their livestock. And there's some specific questions that we ask these kids to get them to start thinking about the whole operation of a business, or the way that they're going to move forward with this loan. And we try to support them along the way in every phase of that loan life cycle with classes and workshops, financial workshops. But this is where we get to vet them right at the beginning. And we'd like to sit down with them and talk with them and discuss what their goals are for their livestock, and just to get a feel about where they're at in their head and why they're doing it, and their passion. And obviously, most of the community here is involved in livestock in one way or another. It's like a lifestyle here on Fort Belknap Reservation. So yeah, we ask them what their age is. Typically, it's between the ages of 15 to 18. Try to get an idea when they're going to sell their livestock. So we set these questions just to make sure that they follow through it, and their parents aren't just filling it out for them and then signing it. So we like them to be aware right from the start about what we expect, and it's all about the learning process for them, because we want this stuff to stick with them, especially the financial concepts that we provide on a quarterly basis through trainings and workshops. We can scroll down a little bit, please. So it's important, here's a question, describe the experience with caring for and feeding livestock. So they got to think through their processes, just like any other business loan that we do. You know, we want to know their background, their capacity to be able to provide for these animals, and what kind of facilities they have, the feed. And that's why we'll get to the estimates here in a sec, but how are they going to raise the funds to purchase feed, medicine, show equipment? A lot of these kids, they, like I said, come from a background of farmers and ranchers that, you know, their uncles, their fathers, mothers have existing ranches. So they have some resources to be able to use, but we want them to identify what those are. And the whole point of that is that they can see what the economic impact is going to be just from one steer. As they move forward through this whole process, they'll be able to see the effects that their purchase will have on the economy and the community. So as you can see, we have signatures there for the applicant, and that signature is for the 15 to 18-year-old children. And then of course, their parents will sign that. And I get a lot of parents just coming in, filling it out for them, and then leaving this area blank where, you know, we have, like I said, we need to have the signature of the applicant and sit them down and walk through the whole operations with them before we move forward. I'm not saying that happens a lot, but it is extremely important that we capture their attention right from the start, because as they move through purchasing feed or facilities, then they'll remember what this application was, what the questions were, and it'll, you know, lean them more towards learning and seeking that knowledge to become better farmers and ranchers in the future. The committee signature area is where, you know, we have a project supervisor sign. So like a 4-H representative, the leader of the 4-H group will sign that. And then our committee members will also sign those. But these are representatives for this whole project. So we look at each one of these loans as a project that consists of a committee member, 4-H leader, a parent, and the child. And of course, a representative from NACA. And that's Rochelle Reyes. She's our director for agriculture projects. Okay, we can move down. Here we have a name and address, a phone number of a banker who can assist them in signing the promissory notes. That's just a formality that we afford the children and the parents. Now here on estimated income and expenses, this is where we really like to discuss with these kids how much it's going to cost each area here, to think through those costs. And it was kind of neat to, these last 8 people that we gave loans to, they were innovative in sharing costs. And we'll get into that a little bit into the presentation, but I just wanted to mention that earlier. But as you can see, you know, we run through the total costs. We just really want them to sit down and think through how this is all going to play out, just like we would any other loan, business loan. And then, of course, they had the estimated income. And we'd like to have this filled out, and sometimes it's kind of difficult for them, but you know, we want to have them give it a shot to fill it out, see where they're at in their learning process. But we do provide financial training to these children every quarter. So we go over a lot of these estimates. Uh, yeah. Now this one's a narrative of, what their project location is. We'd like to know where they're keeping their animal. And we actually do site visits just to make sure, and it's to do an inspection to make sure that they have the capacity and the ability to care for these animals. And just like you would any other loan, we take them through that scenario, and we have them sign the inspection sheet, and it's an added layer of risk for us too, mitigating that risk. And it also helps us become involved with their projects on a closer basis. So yeah, we went through those. We can go to the next slide. So on our underwriting evaluation, we want to mitigate risk just like we do every other loan. So we move through all the questions on the application. We want to make sure that these loans are going to be repaid, which was a huge obstacle to begin with. We had to think through, how are we going to mitigate risk? Because, anybody could just come in and get a loan and not sell their animal or lose their animal, or, a lot of that happens. But we tried to do that through representatives from the 4-H committee. And it seems to be working really good. We haven't had any issues at all, aside from this COVID-19 scare. But everybody's still caring for their animal, still anticipating selling them at the market, whether it be at the annual fair or on an online auction. But I think we have really good support as far as the community members go in attending that online auction. So there's no concern about, repayment ability with that respect. We went through a little bit about the experience and capacity. We did the on-site inspection. And the collateral is, of course, the livestock. And the local 4-H leader actually pays that loan off when the animal gets sold at the market. So the check gets given to us at the fair as a representative, and then the kids get their share of their income there. But yeah. So the terms are reflected in the promissory notes. I should have gave you an example of what those are, but I'm sure everybody has their promissory notes, and you can write those terms right in there. Of course, on the recommendations, we do require them to attend financial planning workshops that we partner with the 4-H Club and the MSU Extension Agent. We partner with them at least once a quarter to deliver financial planning workshops. And what we did was try to identify what age group we're working with, and as we're developing this curriculum to deliver to the children based on the needs that we've seen through the application or discussions, one-on-one technical assistance. We pulled a lot of resources from Money Smart and Building Native Communities. Money Smart, we wanted to start from scratch and determine where these kids are, what kind of education they needed. So we started off with just the spending and the budgeting and the goal setting and those kind of things. And we moved a little bit of the Building Native Communities 5 C's into that curriculum as well, so that we can prepare them to develop a business plan as they grow older, at least be exposed to what it takes to develop financial projections and what's expected of them as a borrower. Um, so we take them through the 5 C's and help them understand that aspect of it. So that was our first experience with our youth loans, and working with the kids. I got to tell you, it's just been a blast. It energizes you in so many different ways and gives me, you know, a lot of energy to move forward, and compassion for these kids, because they're so driven, excited, and happy, a lot, and that's really it affects you as a person too. So we can go to the next one. So that brings us to the social impact part uh, of our program. Obviously, the kids get education, like we discussed. They get exposed to the community, youth. They get exposed to the community and the way that the reservation does business as a community. So they get to interact with other farmers and ranchers, whether they need to buy posts and poles, or you know um, hay for their cattle, uh, other forage or supplements. So yeah, they get that education, not only the financial education that we deliver them, or what they get from their 4-H club. They also get that interaction with the community, the other farmers and ranchers that have been doing it for years and generations. Capacity building. Oh, I'm sorry. They learn principles of raising and marketing livestock, and they learn to make wise investments, financial decisions, caring for their animal. So every quarter, they're exposed to financial trainings, like we discussed, and it gets them to understand uh, the investments that they're making with purchasing this livestock, and what kind of supplements and forages are going to improve the health and nutrition of the animal to get a better uh, price at the market. Economic impact. Obviously, they get the income from the sale, so that's always exciting for a kid to earn his own money. And like I said, local farmers and ranchers purchases the forages, learn the best practices. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, our success story here is Kadeen Racine quoted, "I am thankful for the NACO's Youth 4-H program. I was able to make new friends and learn different ways to care for my steer." So it's pretty neat how when he said that able to make new friends. I questioned and asked, how was that? What were you talking about when you're saying making new friends and learning different ways to care for their steer? Well, when I said earlier that the cutting costs, these kids were innovative in cutting costs by they keep their steer at a particular farm, like 4 or 5 different youth. They would keep it at one farm, and then they would all take turns in paying for the forage or the hay or the supplements that were needed for each cow. So it cut their costs down, considerably by sharing in those costs together. So I thought that was really interesting, and how they leveraged their purchasing power with that. And yeah, so that was our success story.
Wow, Ray, that is so exciting. And to know that the kids collaborated and partnered to cut costs, wow, that's pretty powerful. Well, we'll get to the questions part, Ray, because I know our folks have some questions. I have a few questions for you too. Um, so let's plug through this, and then we're going to open up for questions, guys. We wanted to give you all a little bit more time than usual for questions, because this is such an innovative program. We want to make sure if you do have some that we can answer those for you. So thank you so much, Ray. Now we just want to talk briefly here about the different ways, the top 9 ways to engage youth in ag. This is a challenge I think that many of us have. I was sharing with Ray earlier, I grew up on a ranch. My dad, I'm Sichunga Lakota from Rosebud, South Dakota. And my dad has always been a rancher and was actually a claimant or a part of that Keepseagle lawsuit. And so I was sharing with Ray earlier, my dad actually had his cattle repossessed, which you're probably thinking, wow, that is a thing. Well, yeah, it was back in the 80s. So what had happened was my dad, I'm very light complected, most light complected native in our family. My dad definitely looked native. And so whether we went through a drought, whether we would go through a blizzard, he would go down to FSA in Winter, South Dakota. And as a young child, I'll never forget that lady's name, Betsy. I don't know her last name, nor did it really matter. But all I knew is that Betsy didn't like my dad, nor did she like any Indians that would go down there and ask for help. So dad would make his trek all the way to Winter, South Dakota, which is a good hour away, to go apply for drought relief. You know, we had a huge blizzard happen in the mid 80s and a lot of his cows died. So he went and applied for that relief. And for whatever reason, he would always get denied, right? So he would come home, and I remember him very clearly walking in the door, and he'd be shaking his head. Before my mom could even ask, what did Betsy say? She said, no, I didn't qualify. So growing up as a rancher's daughter, knowing all the challenges that my father had, it was really hard to engage in youth and ag together. I know my brother, it's kind of all laying on him now, but he also has gone through that. So when FSA would come, and every so often they do a cattle count, right? So he'd apply, you know, he had maybe 5 cows die in the blizzard and 3 calves and whatnot. So they'd come out in the springtime and they'd do their cattle check or their cattle count. And they would say, well, it looks like, you know, you're 8 cows short here, Richard. He'd say, yeah, I know. I came down the winter. I applied for, they all died in that blizzard. And I had told Betsy about that. And they're like, well, did you eat them or did you sell them? And that's what they would ask my dad more than once. Did you eat them or did you sell them? And so even though he did, you know, offer to drive them to our little graveyard where he'd pile up all the bones, it didn't matter. So they would add that to his cow count. Well, technically you have this many, but you should have had 8 more. We're going to add those back in. So as time goes along and they come, and I think he had been like 20, 25 short, they ended up taking all the cows. They bought him out. And after paying all those years of loans, he had no more cows. And so to engage our youth, that is one story of a Native American family ranching, right? And so we know that discrimination happened across our communities. And so when we come and we talk about how do we engage the youth in ag, this is very important to me, because seeing what my family went through, seeing how my brother does not want to engage in ranching, although it looks like he is getting there, you know, it was hard. It was really hard to entice us as young people to take over the family ranch. So let's talk about the 9 ways to engage youth in ag. Number 1, social media is everything anymore, right? So we recommend linking social media to agriculture. With the rise of social media and its attraction among young people with access to the appropriate technologies, it could be a route into ag if the two could be linked in some way. Mobile phones, pretty much everybody has a cell phone these days, right? And so we're more connected than ever before. So we feel like utilizing these channels to promote agriculture and educate young people could really go a long way in engaging new groups or intergenerational family members into the ag sector. Number 2 would be improving ag's image. Farming and ranching is rarely portrayed in the media as a young person's game. Like this is their vibe, this is their thing, right? You don't really see that. It's definitely, we live in these modern times. And because of that, sometimes ag can seem outdated, unprofitable, and really comes down to hard work, right? Hard work. But what we know is greater awareness of the benefits of ag as a career needs to be built amongst our young people. In particular, opportunities for greater market engagement, innovation, and farming and ranching as a business, diversifying. So we see a lot of younger generations will go into college, maybe they get a degree in agribusiness and they come back to the ranch, and you know, right now cattle prices are really down. With everything that's happening with the COVID, you would think that's not the case, but it's not the ranchers making the money or profiting from that. It's the packers, the processors, right? They're the ones really making all the money. And so we talk about that, you know, that unprofitability, but the pendulum will swing back and forth, and we know that things can change. And there's really a lot of support, even from our government, to really kind of keep ag propped up, because as we know, that is our food source, right? And so marketing engagement, innovation, farming, education is huge. So we had one family that the young man went off to college, he got a degree in agri-science, comes back, diversified the farm. So he took the cattle, he brought in bees, and they actually sold honey from their farm ranch, if you will. They diversified by bringing in cattle dogs, right? Herding dogs, if you will, and would raise those pups up and then sell the pups. They diversified because they had so much land. They brought in a few bison to really kind of reclaim that traditional land base, if you will. When the bison come in, you know, there's certain insects that are attracted when they dig and paw at the ground, which then there's certain birds that come into play, and then wildlife comes into play. So this young man, because he had diversified the ranch so much, actually created a hunting opportunity for certain different animals that were reappearing back on their ranch after they really diversified the thing. So we know that is something higher education can really lead to strengthening ag with these young folks and their amazing ideas on how to do that. So relatively, there's few students that choose to study ag, perhaps in part because of the quality of ag training could be mixed. I know great strides have been made. Our parent subsidiary nonprofit, First Nations Development Institute, gosh, for as long as I can remember, every year they have an ag scholarship that they put out there, because we know that food systems are so important to our tribal communities, that they're trying to support and build capacity for future ranchers and farmers as well. So strengthening our higher education in ag is so important. Greater use of information and communications technologies is huge, because that can be used to educate and train those unable to go to higher education schools. Not everybody has that ability, as we know. And so that can be used as a tool to help young people spread knowledge, build those networks like Ray talked about with his amazing youth, how they all kind of collaborated together and built this little informal cooperative network where they go and they help feed the steers and take turns, and talk about opportunity right there and saving costs. And I think when it comes down to engaging youth in ag, those cost-cutting measures are so important to make sure that it's a sustainable ranch or farm, and that they can continue to keep growing. So being profitable is definitely going to help with that. And so we know that the using of technology is important. Number 5, empower the young people to speak up. If we are able to empower our young folks to transform ag, and then the barriers to their engagement, such as access to land and finance, growing up on the Rosebud Reservation, tribal trust land exists. I mean, that's our norm, and we know that sometimes it's not always easy to access that land in that way. And then when it comes to financing, talk about another layer of complexity and challenges kind of rolled in there. National policies on farming and food security need to identify and address issues facing young people. And so a lot of this is happening. I just want to reassure you guys, a lot of this work is happening. We have the Native American Agriculture Fund that became this trust fund because of that Keep Siegel lawsuit, where a lot of our Native farmers and ranchers were discriminated against. They are doing some amazing work in Indian country right now. And hopefully at some point, all of us on this call will be touched by their funding opportunities, their training opportunities, their technical assistance, whatever that may be, because there's some amazing people out there, not only doing the work, but doing the policy work, going behind the scenes and advocating for us and fighting for us. Another way to engage the youth would be to facilitate access to land and credit. We just talked about that. Land is often scarce. It's difficult to access for young folks. They don't even know where to get started. If they don't have collateral, getting credit to buy the land is like darn near impossible. So innovative financing for agriculture and small business is just so needed. Like soft loans, like Ray is doing right now with Nakoda-Aaniiih, provided to the youth who come up with these innovative proposals in ag and micro franchising. And gosh, it just gets me so excited because it's working, it's happening, and some of our folks are doing it. Putting agriculture in the school curricula. I grew up in South Dakota. I'm surprised that wasn't in the school curriculum because that's all we had surrounding us, right? Was ranches and farming, more down in Nebraska, but you know, ag in the school curricula would be vital to growing the youth in that area. Greater public investment in ag. So young people may see ag as a sector much neglected, but if we change that image of being old-fashioned, I always like to look at it like this. And I talked to my brother, we talked in length about taking over the ranch, but it's like, do you want to be tied to a desk all the time, or do you want to create your own opportunities? And there's so many ways to diversify and create those opportunities in ag. And then lastly is making ag more profitable. It's so easy to say that, but very difficult to realize, right? Low yields, market failures, it reduces the potential of ag to be profitable. And we're seeing that right now with the COVID hitting, and meat is in short supply, but yet ranchers are getting one of the lowest dollars they've seen in a long time. And so that can be a little bit tricky when it comes to ag and being more profitable. So how do we do that? You know, making ag profitable requires that the costs of farming and ranching or doing business are reduced, while at the same time productivity increases. So thinking outside of the box, being innovative, like Ray's young folks already organically knew how to create a co-op and come together and cut costs here and there, and then even out that labor, you know, ratio, if you will, because they take turns going in and feeding the cattle and caring, or the steers and caring for them. So these are just some ideas we have out there. Of course, all these solutions come with their own hurdles: access to education, access to credit, technology, land development, all of that. But we just wanted to put it out there. There are ways to engage the youth in ag. It is happening. And there's many successes that are out there. So with that said, guys, I do want to invite you all to attend our Capital Access Convening, which will be happening June 23rd through the 25th. Go to oweesta.org to get registered and sign up. So Ray is basically doing our part one of our Native Ag Youth Opportunities workshop, or this webinar today. We're going to have the amazing Skye Adushno. She will be representing us next week, next Wednesday, same time. We're going to have a part two series, if you will, where she'll talk about some of her youth opportunities that they have and all of that good stuff. And then we're actually going to have them as a panel together. We're going to have a Funding Our Future Generations Through Ag breakout session at our Capital Access Convening, which I think you're really going to enjoy. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about that here in a minute, but we've got a really good opportunity coming up for y'all. So whoever's on the call, I'm so glad you get to hear it first today. But I just told Ray and he's so excited, and we'll get to that here in a sec, okay? So just quickly, I always like to share this with y'all out there. A lot of folks will say, well, gosh, I don't even know where my local Native CDFI is, or a CDFI, like where do I go? So I always like to recommend, if you want to look for a CDFI in your area, whether it's regional, whether you're looking for a national org, go to ofn.org/CDFI-locator. And they have the most amazing interactive map there, where you can find all of the CDFIs doing amazing work out there, not only just in Indian country, but across the nation. CDFIs across the United States work to provide affordable, responsible credit, create and sustain jobs, and to stabilize our communities. Financing with heart, I like to look at us as our first financial responders. We're boots on the ground, helping our communities stay afloat. And there really couldn't be more important than that when it comes to being prepared and being that financial band-aid sometimes for our people that are underbanked or, don't even have access to a bank. So with that said, guys, I want to go ahead and open this up to some questions that you may have. If you're comfortable typing it in the chat box, that's really cool. We have our tech support guru, Brian, is behind the scenes, and he may go through and may have answered some of your questions already. I do want to say this. Oweesta is we're developing along in partnership with the Center for Farm and Financial Management, a native ag underwriting school, which we're really excited about. So they've got the most amazing tools in the ag industry. It's called FinPack. And if you are a native CDFI, a native bank, credit union, whatever, you can, and we're going to be rolling out this application probably in the next month. But you'll be able to apply for the school. And initially, because of the pandemic, unfortunately, we were planning on having an in-person meeting in Minneapolis in September, but we had to shift it to a virtual webinar series. But if you participate in all 9 of the webinars that we're going to roll out, and we call it our Native Ag Underwriting School, you will actually qualify to be the recipient of a native ag underwriting software. And so in partnership, not only with the Center for Farm and Financial Management, the Native American Agricultural Fund is getting involved. And if our native CDFIs go through the school, which are the webinars, they participate, Janie will buy you that underwriting software for X amount of time to see if that's something you want to use, something your org would benefit from. And I was just telling Ray, I was super excited because he talked about business plans, and we know those are so important. They even have business plan templates in that FinPack. This FinPack system, some of the largest banks in the country use it, and this amazing team is making it so it's affordable for our native CDFIs to use it. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's some great opportunities coming for y'all. And I'm really excited to be sharing that with you guys. We just had another call with them today, and we're really excited to start rolling that out here. Hopefully within the next month, we'll roll out an application, you fill it out. As long as you're interested in the classes, the webinars, if you will, you'll be able to get that underwriting software installed. And then we're hoping we'll be able to provide technical assistance to support it as well. But some huge opportunities coming up here. So questions and answers. Ray, I do have a question for you. I know you had mentioned that you just started with the program. Okay, so what was the vision for the program? How did you know to partner with the 4-H to create this opportunity, first of all? And so what was the vision? How did you all get started? Let's start with that one. Oh, Ray, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Well, there was a huge push in December to start doing loans. And we weren't getting a whole lot of applications in for agriculture specifically, but we have some board members who are, they're involved with the 4-H group. And there's a lot of children that are involved with 4-H. So it was suggested that we do that, and I thought that was a great idea. So we started developing the application for that, and the strategies just kind of unfolded as we began that application, starting to do that application, create it, design it, and then try to make sure that it coincided with all of our loan policies. Yeah, it just we had to mitigate some risks through representatives for that 4-H company, but yeah, a huge part of our strategy, I guess, or our vision was that youth obviously are an important part of the evolution of the ag industry here on the reservation. And there wasn't a whole lot of people speaking to that, except for the 4-H groups. So when they approached us, well, when our board member approached us with that recommendation, we just took it and ran with it. And because it was an awesome opportunity. Anytime you get an opportunity to work with a kid and to develop and mold them, especially on the financial trainings, education, especially with that, because all the other loans that all the applications, from the adult farmers and ranchers that come in, we provide technical assistance to them too. But you could tell that they didn't have any financial education to begin with, and they've been operating their companies their whole lives, generations and generations. So what we wanted to do was make a spark in that education part, bring the youth up to a level, or at least get them thinking about it and aware and exposed to some of the terms and financial planning and strategies, get them understanding how to do a business plan and projections, and then put it down on paper. So when we thought we could really have a impact on the lives of our youth here on the reservation, we went for it, and it's been going great since. And we're just now starting our second animal livestock purchases and loans, and that begins on Saturday of this week. So, well, that's the deadline anyways. So I have a lot more kids interested now, and they're coming in and filling out their applications. And there's obviously some areas to improve on with our application, with our underwriting, processing, but it's a work in progress, and we learn from the children just like they learn from us.
Absolutely. So have you seen 4-H participation go up, Ray, since you guys started this program, or is that something you anticipate you'll see?
Well, yeah, I have seen that. I haven't, gotten any numbers specific to that, but I definitely get more phone calls and people interested in not only our program, but also the 4-H program.
Wow, fantastic. Well, what I love about FFA and 4-H is that most rural communities have these programs there, right? I know, like in Rosebud, we have a 4-H program, and so I think that's exciting because that partner is there. It exists, whether a CDFI is looking to kind of expand into these opportunities. I think that's huge. And you guys really are on the forefront as a native CDFI, or even an emerging native CDFI, to make those connections and start rolling this out. So I'm so excited, Ray. I think this is awesome, the work that you're doing and the kids that you're building up, and they get exposure to financial education that young.
Right, yeah.
And one thing we know for a fact is that financial literacy in most states is not a requirement for to graduate high school, right?
Right.
So you look at the folks that you're working with, these young people that have those, even knowing what the 5 C's are before they graduate high school is huge, So kudos to you, Ray. I'd tip my cowboy hat if I had one on, cowboy hat, towards you and say, amazing work that you're doing out there. We're so grateful that we were able to talk about this program and get it out there. We will have this presentation is recording, and so we'll have that available for you all. And then those of you that have joined our webinar, we will send you a copy of Ray's application, Nakoda-Aaniiih, if you'd like to look at that. And then, gosh, there was one other thing I wanted to send besides the slide deck. But we'll reach out to you all for being a part of this webinar and make sure you get those resources and those tools and have that accessible. And I just want to end with this, and I've ended with this a few times, but I love this quote by Kevin Walker, who's the president and CEO of Northwest Area Foundation. He said, "Native CDFI success stories have generated a lot of curiosity from my non-native peers in philanthropy. They wonder if we discovered a secret to sparking economic opportunity in communities where the deck has been stacked against people's life chances for generations." I love this quote, and I really feel like, Ray, you are part of that secret to sparking economic opportunity. So keep up the good work out there. We want to thank all of you for being a part of this webinar today. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you all. So thank you so much for everything that you do. We say thank you in many languages here. And thank you so much for being a part of this. And yeah, we will be in touch soon. It's 2 o'clock. You all probably need to get on to your next Zoom webinar. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. You have an amazing day. And Ray, thank you so much, King Ray.
Hey, thank you for having me, Tanya. You are
Absolutely.
awesome.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I will be in contact with you soon. Okay.
Okay, talk
All
soon.
right. Bye, everyone.